I am a virus. Chapter 2, Painful Reflections 4, The Essence of Collectivism. There exists a type of psychological trauma known as vicarious trauma, which occurs even if you are not directly involved in the event or if it did not happen to you. Starting from February, I have continuously paid attention to the human tragedies around me, particularly the death of Dr. Li Wenliang. This vicarious trauma has undoubtedly manifested in me. Thinking about his pregnant wife and the future of his family is profoundly distressing. The best way to alleviate this kind of trauma is to force oneself to focus on other things. So, a week ago, I began to intentionally reduce my online consumption of pandemic-related news, as the constant stream of bad news was overwhelming. Yet, yesterday, news of an entire family dying from the virus confronted me with a suffocating reality that I could not ignore. The root cause of this family's tragic death lies in Wuhan's insufficient medical resources. They did not receive hospital beds, nor were they even diagnosed in time. Since the lockdown of Wuhan on January 23, nearly a month has passed, and even now, posts on Weibo show desperate cries for help from those under so-called home isolation. Even now, medical personnel from across the country are still arriving in Wuhan to offer support. Over the past 20-plus days, a large number of untreated patients have fought against death at home relying solely on their immunity. Such a situation, occurring in the 21st century in an international metropolis, is profoundly absurd. Yes, Wuhan built 2 makeshift hospitals within 10 days in recent weeks. Medical personnel and supplies from across the country have been steadily directed to the city, and online, many people, guided by state media, have genuinely praised the Chinese government's capacity for mobilization. Thousands watched the live stream of the makeshift hospital construction, cheering "Stay strong, Wuhan," while overlooking a harsh truth: before the hospitals were completed and operational, many people were dying at home. Half a month ago, I wanted to make an appeal online: lockdowns are not the best solution. Even if the lockdown was a reality and objectively reduced the virus's spread outside Wuhan, the severe shortage of medical resources and the overwhelming number of untreated patients cannot be resolved in a day, a week, or even a month. This is a basic mathematical problem: saving lives through external aid alone is inefficient. The government's subsequent actions, such as building makeshift hospitals and converting schools into isolation spaces, demonstrate its awareness of the vast gap in hospital beds and quarantine capacity. Given this, why didn't the central government coordinate and organize the dispersal of confirmed patients outside Hubei province immediately after the lockdown, prioritizing humane treatment and the notion that time is life? Wuhan, a central hub in China's railway network, could have transferred confirmed patients to nearby provinces via specially arranged trains. Looking at the current distribution of confirmed cases nationwide, Wuhan's infection rate far exceeds that of any other city. If major cities nationwide shared the medical burden, saving even a day could mean saving dozens or even hundreds of lives. Regrettably, to this day, the Chinese authorities have not taken such actions, nor do I have the courage to call for it online. I know all too well that any such appeal would be met with overwhelming criticism and condemnation. I also know the decision to lock down Wuhan implicitly entailed the willingness to sacrifice some of its residents. While decision-makers may not have known the exact number of lives to be sacrificed, they likely didn't care either. This decision evidently aligned with strong public sentiment. Over the past month, alongside nationwide support for Wuhan, discrimination and hostility toward its people have persisted. Overnight, Wuhan residents were vilified as the cause of national suffering. If I dared to appeal for the humane transfer of confirmed patients, I would be drowned in a torrent of scorn. This leads to the crux of my reflection: sacrificing individuals for the collective, achieving the greater good through the loss of a few. These beliefs and actions have long been seen as reasonable by most Chinese people. Few care whether the sacrifice was a willing choice, who decides who should be sacrificed, or what criteria are used to determine the minority to be sacrificed. Of course, the underlying assumption is that they themselves are not among the sacrificed. Even if, by chance, they are, most Chinese people would accept it as bad luck, without finding it unreasonable. This is the essence of Chinese collectivism: an intense, underlying selfishness, or at best, a survival of the fittest mentality rooted in an outdated jungle law. Consider the rapid rise of the Communist Party in China from 1945 to 1949, fueled by the promise of land redistribution to rally the majority against a minority. Mobilizing vast numbers of farmers and using brute force to seize property and land, their success in just 4 years highlights the raw appeal of this collective mobilization, not driven purely by communist ideals but by awakening the latent cruelty and envy within many. This approach contrasts with the Soviet Union, which relied on state power to enforce brutal land reforms post-regime establishment. The success of China's land reform was akin to countless past peasant uprisings under the guise of wealth redistribution, but this time, far more systematic and institutionalized under the Communist Party's class struggle narrative. The endurance of such practices and beliefs highlights how deeply rooted Chinese collectivism remains: a mentality that prioritizes joining the majority, regardless of morality, and sees any sacrifice of minorities as justified if it benefits the majority. This is why, even today, few question the inhumanity of the Wuhan lockdown or feel moral guilt over the sacrifice of its people. To the average Chinese citizen, sacrificing 1 million to save 1 billion is rational, and collective welfare is but a facade for self-interest. While some may laud the government's decisive lockdown measures, suggesting that Western countries would struggle without similar actions, such comparisons overlook fundamental differences in transparency and freedom of the press. In the West, the cover-up of an epidemic for over a month would be inconceivable. The existence of people who genuinely praise the lockdown is a testament to how deeply Chinese society remains entrapped in a harmful collectivist mindset, a reality masked by skyscrapers, high-speed trains, and rockets, but rooted in a value system that remains centuries old.